Hello, I'm Bruce Lorincz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose. I have a weekly show. Brad Musgrave is our guest today, and he's the retiring, I'm afraid to say that. Of course, you might look at it differently, Brad. Athletic director here at Wadsworth High School. And Brad, you'd be interested. I did some shows lately. The three-time state wrestling champions. We had Jackson Joy on, and Mr. Tavanello from Columbus.
Nice.
Joanna was so coordinated with technology, and she got Nick Tavanello in Columbus, and he, of course, went to Ohio State,
Right.
and Jackson's going to Cornell.
Yep.
So athletics really brings out sometimes the good head and educational background in students. And we also did Firestone Stadium, where they just had the softball tournament, and also Joanna sent out links for those schools to go ahead and show their parents and coaches as well. So athletics really is a focal point of any high school, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yep.
What about your background? Where did you come from, and did it prepare you for this task at hand?
Well, yeah, it did and it didn't. So by that, we'll go, I grew up in a small rural town in northwest Ohio. Arcadia, it's nestled between Findlay and Fostoria. It's got one stoplight.
Okay.
Graduated with 50 kids in my class. So to go from there to Wadsworth, when you've got between 350 and 400 kids in a graduating class, that this year's senior class was probably as big as my high school was, 9 through 12 boys and girls combined. So yeah, that was a lot different. But I was a special ed teacher, coached basketball for 15 years, a variety of different levels. Then I ventured into administration, went to neighboring Findlay, got a job at middle school there as an assistant principal and athletic director, did that for 2 years, and then moved on to Napoleon High School by Bowling Green, and I was their athletic director there for 11 years. And then here at Wadsworth, I'm finishing up year 11 here as well. A point that might be interesting to you, Bruce, you did not know this. So in 1981, when I was a freshman in high school at Arcadia High School, my dad would always take me to the state basketball tournament, boys basketball tournament.
Right.
Then they played at St. John Arena at Columbus.
They did.
Right?
They did.
Back then it was Class A, AA, AAA. You remember that too?
I do.
Right?
I do.
So as a freshman in high school, I sat there and I watched the Napoleon Wildcats win the AA state championship, and I watched the Wadsworth Grizzlies finish runner-up in the state championship, same tournament. And if you'd have told that kid, that 15-year-old kid, that you're going to grow up and you're going to be the athletic director at both of those schools for 11 years each, I would have thought you were crazy.
Keith Byers from Dayton Roth played.
He had elbow pads.
Yes, he
Yep.
was a.
He liked himself a lot. He flashed his number ones on
yes,
the introductions.
Yes, and he played tight end for the Eagles for several years, and he was a real athlete, no question about it. So how did you hear about the Wadsworth opening?
Well, again, it's going to go back to my Northwest Ohio roots. So very, very close to my mentor and good friend, Jerry Snodgrass, longtime athletic director and boys basketball coach at Findlay High School. And then he was really big with the Northwest District Athletic Board and ultimately the Ohio High School Athletic Association executive director for years. He is the one that, so what happened was there was a change in the state teacher retirement, as you remember. And so you had, they were going to change it from 30 years for retirement, full pension, to 35, and they were going to do it in 2-year increments. So I just missed the cutoff for 30 years, so I knew that there was going to be a rash of jobs available in Ohio. And I went on an interviewing crusade for 2 years. I actually got offered a job down in Cincinnati that I ended up turning down, and I stayed at Napoleon one more year. And then when I was sending out resumes and whatnot in 2013, Jerry got a hold of me and said, hey, he goes, do you remember like Wadsworth High School? And I go, well, not since I was a freshman in high school watching them play basketball.
Sure.
And he goes, hey, they're open. And he goes, I know the athletic director there that's moving on to different administrative role, Rich Berlin. And he goes, you might want to check that one out. He goes, that's a really good place to be. And so I did apply, got interviews, and I lucked out, and got the job. And 11 years later, I'm sitting here talking to Bruce Lorincz, 3 weeks away from retirement.
Well, that's congratulations to you.
Thanks.
Being in that position myself for 2 different tenures, it's a very difficult position. Sometimes people are very demanding and want things done right away, and it's not possible. What about your transition? Were there some sports here? I think Napoleon might have been a little smaller than Wadsworth that maybe we had that Napoleon didn't have.
Believe it or not, no.
Okay.
They are the size of Talmadge High School.
Okay.
And with all the different divisions that are switching anymore, basically, if you want to think about it today and instead of next year when all these sports are going to 5 or 7 divisions, Napoleon is primarily Division II for everything, but 4 in football. And it used to be when I was there, they were 2 and 3. And so they are smaller than Wadsworth, but believe it or not, we had the same exact sports, except Napoleon has water polo because they've got their own pool in their school building. Okay. So we had our own pool there, and so our swim team was really good, and we had really good water polo. And there's only about, I think now maybe 15 to 20 schools in Ohio that have water polo. And so, yeah, we were involved in that. But since then, being in Wadsworth, you add lacrosse, and now that kind of trumps what they had over there.
And some more coming down the road. Girls wrestling.
Can be,
I mean,
yes.
the Ohio high schools seems to want to expand. Boys volleyball, I don't think Wadsworth has a team, but there'll probably be people knocking at the door for
not surprise
your predecessor to say, hey, let's go ahead and have a team. And it just more things for the athletic director to be concerned about.
Correct. The job just keeps growing. The OHSA is looking for opportunities for kids, which is great. Not every school is equipped with facilities to accommodate all that stuff, and it'll be a challenge at Wadsworth, but it's just kind of in the infancy of being talked about. Some people have talked about it, but no one's really stepped forward to try to initiate and get things going. We had a girl on our wrestling team this year, which I had at Napoleon too, but in terms of a girls team, well, obviously you have to have a lot more interest in the sport to create a separate team from the boys.
How many times has your athletic secretary bailed you out from situations that you probably forgot about or didn't note? Or
I will say she's pretty good, Alicia Innocente. She's really good, and I had Jody Bowers before her, and yeah, they're really good, and they help you with so many things, and they're the face of the office. So my office is actually in the back of our overall office area, and she's right there in the front, and you know, it's people want to come and they'd rather see her smiling face. They don't want to look at mine. So they see her and she's just so pleasant and friendly and helpful. And so, yeah, it's wonderful. And yeah, she's helped a lot.
You know, little things. Well, I guess they're not little rosters to the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And sometimes they catch kids that birthdays don't mesh and they're ineligible. Rosters to the other schools so they can have programs.
Yep.
I mean, and ticket sales and all sorts of things.
She takes care of transportation. She takes care of making sure officials are paid, and that's both for the high school and the middle school. You know, and you're right. She does a lot of stuff. She does all the banquet preparation for all the sports. So yeah, she deals with all the physicals, and when you have about 500 kids that are in sports, that's just part of the paperwork stuff for preseason. And she handles all that stuff, and she does a magnificent job.
Yeah, I think sometimes people behind the scenes are, taken for granted. What about your trainers? How do they help the athletics and keep kids on the field?
We're really blessed. So we're associated now with Akron Children's Hospital. Todd Sable is our athletic trainer here at the high school. He's the best. He is so good. He's very conscientious. He's organized. He cares about the kids. He gets to know all the kids. He gets to know their parents. He's very communicative, and he's not going to put kids at risk for injuries. And he makes sure, even though it's tough for kids because they always want to play, but sometimes you got to sit out and you got to let that body heal. And so he's really good. And Tyjae Wilson, we're blessed to have two. She actually is associated more at the middle school, but she helps with the high school a lot as well for some of our bigger events. And when we'll have something like soccer or lacrosse at the stadium, but we have volleyball or baseball, tennis, whatever at the high school, and we got on two separate facilities, away from each other. Those guys kind of split those duties, and they work tirelessly, and they do a great job.
One less thing to worry about if you have, and again, we hosted the wrestling sectional, I think, and have for several years, and then you have soccer.
Yep.
If you have someone on site
Sure.
that can administer that's just one less thing for you to worry about.
Absolutely, and even though coaches get trained in first aid and CPR and things, it's better to have somebody that is a trained professional. That's their job. You're more of a backup or a helper for those situations. You need somebody that's their profession and they know what they're doing.
And if the trainers say, it's going to be another week, the coaches have to.
They do.
They have to
our coaches are great.
Yeah,
at both schools I worked at, coaches were great.
Right.
Our trainers were wonderful, and they adhered to what they said. So, they work in concert with the trainer, and the trainer is very, like I said, communicative and works with them and explains, hey, this is the situation, here's what we're looking to do for prognosis, here's how much we're looking that they're probably going to be out, and they work together, and they work together wonderfully.
Talk about working in concert. We're in the Suburban League, National Division. Tell us about the transition into two divisions and comment a little bit about the competitiveness in that Suburban League. It's quite a league.
It's like running a gauntlet through that thing. So the Suburban League, as most people that have been in Wadsworth for a long time know, was just 8 schools. We were the biggest fish in the pond, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, the coaches and I talk about it, administrative talk about it. I bring it up at league meetings in the past when we were first getting together. In essence, Wadsworth got kicked out of the league. Okay, but they stayed in the Suburban League, we just divided. And if you notice, Nordonia is the only school in the Suburban League, at least when I got here in 2013, that stayed with us. Everybody else formed their own division and brought in some other schools. So it's divided up based on two categories. Number one is enrollment. So everyone in the national division with us it's the top 8 teams enrollment wise. So you're keeping those people together that have similar enrollment, and also competitiveness. And then in the American, it's the same thing. They're all 8 of those, they would be number 9 through 16 in enrollment and their competitiveness. However, like we talked about before this show, there's crossovers in different sports, and Highland's a good one to use. Highland is really good. Aurora is good in a lot of sports. We play some of those teams, but not everybody, so it's not mandated. And there's certain schools, and I'm not going to call any of them out, but they don't want to play us. They don't feel they're competitive with us, and that's why the Suburban League went to the configuration that it is today.
Talk about schedules. I saw the game 10 football, and I picked it up on WCTV. You went all the way to Maryland. Tell us how that happened.
That was actually week 8 or 9.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think it was 9 this year.
Okay,
yeah,
I stand corrected.
No, you're okay. But yeah, so what the situation is when we formed the Suburban League, there was Cloverleaf got out right away. Yeah. As soon as everything was solved, it seemed like a couple weeks later they said, "Oh, by the way, see you guys," and so they left. And when you get that many opinions in the room, you got 15 different schools that all have superintendents, principals, athletic directors. They're all trying to vie for what's best for their school, also trying to vie for what's best for the league. We just never could agree on who to bring in, and we had so many different schools.
That's not all bad, though. I mean, they represent their community.
Correct, absolutely correct. And so, but it made it very challenging at the same time. So in the sports for the American, they were the one missing the 8th team. Mm-hmm. That created an opening in everyone's schedule. And as you know from being at schools and being in this line of business, if you don't have all 10 football games, especially weeks 4 through 10, where almost everybody else is in a league, who are you going to play?
Yeah.
So trying not to use up all your time in this show, the quickest way to say it is Justin Todd, my head coach, and I reached out to all the different areas and resources that you can to post that you have an opening. Plus, we went with rumors. This school may have an opening, what have you. We went to schools, either no one wanted to play us or they had already found another game. And there wasn't many options left. And we were actually even looking at a parochial school in West Virginia. I had a school in Detroit, Michigan reach out to me. I had a school in Missouri reach out to me. And so we really, to keep our schedule balanced, we were really looking for an away game. So Fort Hill, Maryland, their athletic director reached out to me. I ran it by Justin. He got on YouTube and watched some of their games, knowing full well that they had won several state championships in recent past. Sure. And he said, I'm telling you, we could play with these guys. We'll turn this into a fun business trip. Let's do this. And so I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah. And so I had at Napoleon, we were in a smaller league with 6 schools. So I was constantly looking for weeks 4.
Definitely.
And so I was looking for those before. And we traveled to Columbus. That's how I got to know Copley's AD. We came over to St. Vincent St. Mary. We played them 4 times. It was a 3-hour trip each time. So, I was used to that kind of stuff. Around here, schools are so close together that, everybody's like, 3 hours? Oh my goodness. I'm like, come on, it's not that much further, but it was 4 hours to them, but it's 3 hours to Cincinnati. I said, it's only an hour further than Cincinnati.
Sure.
They're like, really? Yeah, we looked at Cincinnati schools. So anyway, put it all together. Very supported by our Board of Education, administration. The kids were excited about it. The parents jumped on board. It did turn out to be a pretty cool event. Unfortunately, we lost a close one.
Tremendous game.
Tremendous
game.
It really was.
WCTV got a feed, and we saw it locally, and it was a very exciting game. And
everybody that attended, whether they participated or watched, said it was so much fun. So
no question.
I'm glad they got to experience that. Speaking
of the community, how would you comment to the community? And that's your camera right over there. What about the community? Have they supported athletics? And it's a big deal in Wadsworth, isn't it? It's huge.
But here's what I want to tell you. It's the same in Napoleon. So for 22 years at 2 high schools, I've been blessed to work for a school and work for a community that shows out. The Napoleon people bled, blue and white, and here they bleed red and white. And so, they show out. They buy tickets. They go to away games. If teams need something, the boosters need something, they're there. People step up all the time. Businesses are willing to help. It's just been a wonderful experience. And like I said, I've been blessed for 22 years at 2 high schools. That's what drew me here when I came and I looked around, was it reminded me of Napoleon. It's just bigger. And it just has the same vibe. So and that's what I told the Napoleon people when I first got the job here. They're like, "What's it like?" I go, "It's just like here. It's just bigger." So it's been a great run.
You mentioned the Booster Club. What role do they play in athletics?
You need it. They're going to try to help you get it.
Okay, all right.
Those ladies, Mary Lynn's the president. Lori Bennett's the treasurer.
Right.
Chuck Ernest, he's a member of that. Between those 3 folks, they're going to do whatever they can to help you get what you need. They're tremendous.
And you hope the coaches will go ahead and let you know ahead of time, we need this.
They do. They do. We have those discussions, and they do. Yes.
Do you have an athletic council where you meet by season?
I do. I have a preseason meeting with each group of coaches. But we also have end of the season meetings individually, and that's where we talk about the next year. But they know my door's always open, my cell phone's always handy. I'm always accessible. So if they need something, they let me know.
You compared Napoleon and Wadsworth. Did Napoleon have a WCTV that broadcast in 2023 198 shows?
I don't know. They had an NCTV.
Okay.
And it was student run.
Okay.
But this one's different, obviously.
Right.
So it's city run.
Right.
They did a lot of stuff too. But it was more kids were the cameramen.
Kind of learning the ropes.
Yes.
Okay,
but WCTV has been. They showcase our sports teams. That's the easiest way to put it. They showcase us, and we think the world of them.
And if parents want to go ahead, and we can put a plug for next year for your predecessor, parents can step up, get training here, get the equipment.
Yep.
And they can go ahead and broadcast. Again, soccer is covered pretty well, lacrosse, but there are some gaps along the way.
Sure.
It's real difficult with one camera. Baseball, softball.
Yeah.
It's not easy
Yeah.
for some sports. It's not really easy. But if parents would want to go ahead and do that, maybe have a little background.
Yeah.
Gymnastics, we had parents do that. So we try to go ahead and outreach to all the sports, and I'm sure the athletes appreciate it.
They do, and so do the coaches. And I think it's easier to get somebody to film an event maybe than to broadcast. A lot of people don't feel comfortable speaking, even though nobody's maybe watching them. They know they're going to end up hearing them. So some people don't feel comfortable with the broadcasting part.
No question. What is the process for the Ohio High School Athletic Association to have schools host tournaments? And I know you've been involved with soccer, wrestling, and probably some others that I can't think of, but it's something that you have to show that you can host it and do a good job.
Anymore, Bruce, it's do you want to do it? Because they can't get schools to do it anymore. Right. Since COVID, they had a number of financial situations, and it's not financially lucrative to do it anymore. So people are doing it more or less to help out, and concessions is probably the biggest moneymaker. Some schools charge parking, which I've never agreed with for high school sports, but there's really not much to make money off of, and it is a lot of work. But we host a lot of stuff because of the fact, in addition to the sectional wrestling that you're talking about, because it's evolved into the lower level parts of the tournament, the better seeds get to host games. And we typically have been blessed to be a better seed many times. And so we host a lot of tournament games because of just the way the makeup of tournament play is now. And it went to that because it was harder and harder to get neutral sites because of the financial part. And there's a lot of problems and complications that come with hosting. Believe it or not, spectators aren't always the most kind or friendly, even though you're doing them a favor by hosting their schools.
No, it's a lot of work. Certainly,
it is a lot of work.
Although if you did it one time, I know I hosted a couple football playoff games, and there's media, and you got to get the officials and everything set up. And if there's a screw up, you know who's to blame, right?
Absolutely,
no question.
Absolutely. But it is, hosting all these different tournaments that your own teams are playing in. That's the most fun. Right. That your own kids are participating.
No question about it. What about coaching vacancies? How do you approach that? And if it is like basketball or football, what's the process in Wadsworth?
Yeah, well, it's the process pretty much everywhere. Most people are so used to what they see on television, watch on SportsCenter or on their phones, and they think as soon as somebody says they're done with a job, the next day you're going to announce who the coach is. Well, high school sports doesn't work that way.
No.
So you have to post it. Every school's got a contract with their teachers union, so you have to post stuff in-house. And different schools might have different lengths of time that it has to be posted for. Here, I believe it's a week during the school year, maybe 2 weeks in the summer. There's places to post it externally, whether it's on your own website, the Ohio High School website, different things like that. Could be on social media. And then you start conducting interviews, but there's also processes that go into that as well. There's school law that says that if somebody that is a certified teacher in your school district wants a coaching position and they're deemed qualified, they're the first ones that have choice, regardless if they're the best candidate or not. And many people don't understand that. The next layer is somebody outside your school district that's a certified teacher, maybe up the road at Norton, and they're the next layer that's supposed to be offered these jobs. Now, all these schools, they don't do it like this. The only way they're going to get it is if somebody would challenge them, and sometimes that does happen. The last layer would be your people off the streets who work out in the in the communities, and they're not in the teaching profession. They're actually the third layer, we're getting more and more. When I first got here, we had mainly teachers, and now it's kind of flipping, and it's more people outside your school system.
Why don't people want to officiate?
Am I going to be honest? I got 3 weeks left, right?
Yep.
Because too many spectators, kids, parents, just spectators in general in your community won't lay off of them. That's the bottom line, and I wouldn't want to do it either.
And we rush officials. Sometimes it used to be a 3-year period.
Yes.
where they could,
well, now they're desperate. They need people, so
they would mentor. They would get
Yes.
mentor.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we're beyond that. What about your best memory in Wadsworth?
Well, the best memory for me is this is a crazy profession, and you understand. I've worked 50 to 70 hours a week, 10 months out of the year for 22 straight years. And I'm going to be happy to actually get control of my life again and actually, have a life again. But you miss the people. All the people that I've done this with for so many years, it's the relationships with coaches primarily. They're like my family, love them to death. The kids, parents that you get to know of the kids, teachers, your administration you work with, community members at large, your biggest supporters, the boosters, yada, yada, yada. It's people. It's the relationships. That's the biggest memory. I could say the state championship girls basketball, 8 state wrestling champions, 2 track champions.
Yeah.
And yes, athletically, that's probably it. But it's really the people that you get to work with.
And what are you going to do? You have 3 weeks left. Are you a fisherman or a traveler?
I am not. But when you do this and you do so many hours, something gets sacrificed. Unfortunately, I'm blessed that my wife's still with me, and I missed a lot. And it was nice when my daughter went through school. She was my office worker, and her sports that she played was my job. So that was the best part of being a dad, was when she was in school with me. She rode to school with me every day until she got a car. But anyway, what am I going to do? I'm going to spend time with my family. I got a 1.5-year-old granddaughter from the daughter I just mentioned.
Fantastic.
And she needs to have some fun with her grampy.
Definitely, no question about it. A lot of places to go, a lot of zoos and a lot of fairs and a lot of things.
And the coaches know that I've already got a week planned in Vegas, and I'm going to send them pics from the pool and ask them how the first day of school is going.
Congratulations on your career, and I can tell you will certainly have some good times with the family. Very, very much. Thank you for viewing Bruce on the Loose, and we'll be back next week with another interesting show. Thanks for viewing.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth